Welcome to a deep dive into how the things we learn shape our personalities.
Fascinating stuff.
We're diving into the work of two big names in behavioral psychology, Ivan Pavlov and B.F. Skinner.
Yeah, two of the greats.
Get ready, because we're about to uncover how all those experiences, even the little ones we barely notice, well, they're actually molding us into who we are.
It really is amazing. We reveal so much about ourselves, even through actions we think are totally unique or spontaneous.
That's so true. It makes you wonder.
It really does.
Okay, so let's start with Pavlov.
Okay.
He's the salivating dogs guy, right?
Yeah.
I feel like there's more to his work than just that image, though.
Oh, you're absolutely right. There's a lot more to it.
Okay, good.
Pavlov was a Russian physiologist, and while his experiments with dogs are legendary, his work goes way beyond drool.
Okay.
He actually stumbled upon a fundamental principle of learning: classical conditioning.
Okay, I have to admit, classical conditioning, it always sounded kind of intimidating to me. Can you break that down a little?
Absolutely. Imagine this. You're walking down the street, and you hear that catchy jingle of an ice cream truck.
Oh, yeah.
Suddenly, you're craving a popsicle, even though you weren't even thinking about ice cream before.
Right.
That's classical conditioning at work. Your brain has linked that sound, the jingle, with the pleasurable experience of eating ice cream.
Wait, so those earworm jingles, are you telling me those are actually like a deliberate marketing tactic?
They are.
That's kind of genius.
It is.
In a manipulative sort of way.
Yeah, it is. But think about it. You weren't born craving popsicles when you heard a certain tune. That association was learned. Pavlov demonstrated this with his dogs. He noticed that they would naturally salivate when presented with food.
Sure.
An unconditioned response to an unconditioned stimulus.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Totally. Food makes you drool, that's just biology.
But then he introduced a neutral stimulus, a bell. It initially meant nothing to the dogs. He'd ring the bell right before presenting the food, and guess what? After repeated pairings, the dogs began to salivate at the sound of the bell alone, even without the food present.
No way. So they learned to associate the bell with, like, the anticipation of food? That's incredible.
Exactly. The bell became a conditioned stimulus, triggering a conditioned response.
Wow.
It all boils down to pairing something neutral with something that already has a strong automatic effect.
Wow, this is giving me so much to think about in terms of my own, like, habits and reactions and things. You mentioned the ice cream jingle, but I'm sure there are tons of examples in our everyday lives.
Absolutely. Ever notice how certain songs evoke powerful memories or emotions? That first dance with your partner, a song that reminds you of a childhood vacation, those feelings are linked to those tunes through classical conditioning.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
It's like our brains are creating these invisible connections all the time,
time.
and we don't even realize it.
Without us even knowing. And it's not just about happy associations either. Think about phobias, an extreme fear of spiders or heights, for example.
Right.
These often stem from a negative experience that gets paired with that object or situation, leading to an intense, conditioned fear response.
You know, this is reminding me of something else you mentioned earlier, something about Pavlov's work that goes, beyond just pairing bells and food.
Right.
Something about experimental neurosis.
You have a great memory. That's a fascinating and slightly darker aspect of Pavlov's research. He found that if you make those pairings too difficult, if the dog has to discriminate between incredibly similar stimuli to get the reward, it can lead to serious stress.
You mean like if the bell had to be a very specific tone or else no treat?
Yes.
That sounds frustrating, even for a dog.
Exactly. Pavlov found that this kind of pressure, this constant need to differentiate between very subtle cues, could actually lead to a breakdown in their behavior. He called it experimental neurosis, because it seemed to induce a kind of nervous breakdown in the dogs.
That's kind of unsettling, but also incredibly insightful. I never considered how our learning experiences, especially those that involve pressure and uncertainty, could actually impact our well-being in such a profound way. Does that mean our personalities are essentially shaped by these patterns of association and reinforcement?
That's a great question, and it's a question that another prominent figure in behavioral psychology, B.F. Skinner, explored in depth.
Okay.
He took a slightly different approach, focusing on what he called operant conditioning, which takes us beyond those automatic responses into the world of consequences and choices.
Okay, so we've seen how powerfully our experiences can shape our responses, like with Pavlov.
Yeah.
Now let's explore another pioneer in understanding behavior,
Okay.
B.F. Skinner.
B.F. Skinner.
He coined the term operant conditioning. Right.
He did, and it's a fascinating shift in perspective.
Yeah.
While classical conditioning is about reflexes, operant conditioning delves into how the consequences of our actions,
Okay.
influence our future behavior. We're talking about choices, rewards, and those like, oops, shouldn't have done that. Moments that teach us valuable lessons.
So it's less about instinct and more about learning through trial and error.
Yeah.
Like, if I touch a hot stove and burn myself,
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to do that again.
Precisely. That's a perfect example.
Right.
The pain acts as a powerful negative reinforcement, making you less likely to repeat that behavior. Skinner would say we are constantly shaping our actions based on the consequences that follow, whether we're aware of it or not.
That makes me think about training my dog.
Okay.
When she does something good, she gets a treat. And when she chews on my slippers, she gets a firm. No,
Right.
it's all about rewards and punishments, right?
Absolutely. And Skinner identified different schedules of reinforcement that influence how quickly and how strongly a behavior is learned.
Oh, okay.
Let's think about your dog for a moment. At first, when you're teaching her a new trick, you probably use continuous reinforcement. Every time she sits, she gets a treat.
Right.
This helps her make that initial connection between the behavior and the reward.
But we all know you can't keep rewarding a dog every single time she sits, right?
Right, that's where the other schedules come in.
Oh.
In real life, rewards are often less predictable, and that's actually a powerful motivator.
Oh, okay.
Think about variable ratio reinforcement. You mentioned slot machines earlier.
Right.
That's a classic example.
Yeah.
People keep pulling that lever because they never know when they might hit the jackpot.
Right.
That unpredictability keeps them hooked.
It's like that little burst of dopamine you get when you check your phone and see you have a notification.
Right.
It keeps you coming back for more, even if most of the time it's just spam.
Exactly. Our brains love those little surprises.
Yeah.
And then there's variable interval reinforcement.
Okay.
Think about checking your email.
Okay.
You don't know when you'll get a message from that person you're hoping to hear from.
Right. But the possibility keeps you checking back throughout the day.
Wow. So these principles of operant conditioning are woven into our everyday lives in some pretty subtle ways.
They are.
It's like Skinner is giving us the secret code to understanding human behavior.
And here's another layer to consider.
Okay.
Skinner argued that while punishment might temporarily stop a behavior, it's not as effective as reinforcement in the long run.
Really? Why
Right.
not?
Why not?
Don't negative consequences teach us what not to do?
They do, but often in a limited way. Punishment, especially if it's harsh or inconsistent, can create fear and anxiety without addressing the underlying reasons for the behavior. Skinner believed that focusing on positive reinforcement rewarding desired behaviors was a more effective and humane approach.
So going back to the dog training example, it's better to reward my dog for good behavior than to constantly punish her for chewing on my slippers. It makes me wonder if we sometimes rely too heavily on punishment in other areas of life, like parenting or even in the workplace. It's definitely something to reflect on. Now let's talk about another fascinating concept: secondary reinforcement.
Okay.
It explains how things that aren't inherently rewarding, like money or praise, gain their power to motivate us.
Okay, you've piqued my curiosity.
Yeah.
Tell me more about secondary reinforcement. How do everyday things become so powerful in shaping our behavior?
It's all about association. Think about it. Money itself isn't inherently satisfying. You can't eat it, and it doesn't offer comfort or warmth.
Unless you have like a lot of it,
Why?
and maybe then you could build a very comfy mattress fort out of it or something.
But even then, it's what the money represents: security, freedom, the ability to acquire things that bring us joy. That's what truly matters. We learn to associate money with these positive outcomes, and it becomes a powerful motivator.
So it's like a mental shortcut. We see money and our brains automatically think about all the good things it can get us.
Exactly. And the same goes for praise recognition, even a simple "good job."
Yeah.
These social rewards might not seem like much on the surface, but they tap into our deep-seated need for belonging and approval.
That makes me think about how we motivate people in the workplace. It's not always about bonuses or promotions. Sometimes a genuine word of appreciation can go a long way.
Absolutely. And this ties back to Skinner's emphasis on positive reinforcement. By recognizing and rewarding desired behaviors, we can often achieve more sustainable and positive change than through punishment alone.
This has been so eye-opening. We've gone from drooling dogs to deciphering the subtle ways our experiences shape who we are.
And we've only scratched the surface.
Yeah.
What's fascinating is that both Pavlov and Skinner, despite their different approaches, they both highlighted the incredible power of learning and shaping behavior, from simple reflexes to complex personality traits.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
It really does.
How much of who we are is a result of these patterns of conditioning that we've accumulated over our whole lives.
It's a question without easy answers, but by understanding these principles, we can become more conscious of how our experiences, both positive and negative, might be influencing our thoughts, feelings, and actions.
So listeners, as you go about your day, pay attention to those moments when you're being conditioned. By advertising, by social media, even by your own internal reward systems.
Ask yourself, what associations am I forming? What behaviors are being reinforced? And most importantly, how can I use this knowledge to become the best version of myself?
That's a great question to ponder. This has been an incredible deep dive into behavioral psychology. We hope you've gained some valuable insights and maybe even a few aha moments along the way.
Remember, the journey of self-discovery is ongoing. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and
Thanks
keep
for
learning.
watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Your support helps us keep creating valuable content like this. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss an update. Join our community for more insights into psychology and personal development.